The hollow-faced boy, he has no features, just skin where a face should be. But if you speak to him, he remembers your voice. And someday, he answers back. Tales of the hollow-faced boy have circulated in pockets of Appalachia and the Ozarks since the early 1900s. Described as a child no older than 10, he appears alone on dirt roads and forest trails, always with his head tilted as if listening. Witnesses describe a pale boy in a tattered white shirt. But what strikes terror into them is his face, blank and smooth, like an unfinished doll. No eyes. No mouth. Just skin. They say if you speak to him, even one word, he knows you. He hears your voice inside him forever. And years later, sometimes decades, you'll get a reply. Not by phone. Not by mail. But from behind your mirror. We were hiking through the Daniel Boone National Forest when we found him. Sitting on a stone near the edge of the trail, knees pulled to his chest, staring. If you could call it that, into the trees. "Hey kid, are you lost?" I said. I didn't mean to say it. The words slipped out of me before I could stop them, like I'd been waiting to speak. He turned to face me, slow and fluid, and that blank face tilted sideways like he was tasting the air around my words. His head twitched. Then he stood and walked into the forest, vanishing between the trees without sound. I didn't sleep that night. 3 years later, I moved across the country. Started a new job. Forgot that day like a bad dream. Until one morning, I heard my own voice echo from the bathroom, muffled, distorted, saying, "Hey kid, are you lost?" Only I hadn't spoken. I looked in the mirror. There were handprints on the inside of the glass. And I swear I saw something smooth and pale moving in the fog. The hanging judge of Clay County, he sentenced the guilty to hang, and the innocent to follow. In rural Kentucky, the legend of the hanging judge is passed down through generations like a curse. Based on Judge Malcolm Redd, who presided over Clay County in the late 1800s, the story says he hanged over 40 men, many without trial, some just boys. They say he made a deal beneath the gallows, a life for power, a neck for every year he'd stay young. And when his body finally vanished from its grave, sightings of a man in judicial robes began again. On moonless nights, beneath nooses strung from trees. If you wander into his woods and hear a gavel crack, it's not thunder. It's a sentence. We were exploring an abandoned church near Oneida, trying to film for our ghost hunting channel. The locals warned us not to go past Sundown Ridge. Naturally, we went anyway. Deep in the woods, we found it, a clearing with an old hanging tree, blackened and twisted. Beneath it, a stone platform still stood, cracked, but intact. And sitting on it was a man in a long black coat and powdered wig. I thought it was a setup, maybe a cosplayer. Until he raised a gavel and struck the stone. The sound echoed through the woods like a cannon blast. He turned his head. His face was sunken, paper white, with empty eye sockets and a stitched mouth. He pointed at me and rasped, "Guilty." The rope dropped from the branches above. And I swear something tried to lift me by the throat. We ran. I looked back once and saw the noose swinging, though there was no wind. Later that night, bruises bloomed around my neck in the shape of rope. I still can't swallow without pain. And every night since, I hear that gavel strike. Louder. Closer. The 13th child of Crowley Hollow, 12 children lived. The 13th crawled from the earth with too many fingers, no tongue, and an appetite for bones. In the coal valleys of West Virginia, they talk about Crowley Hollow. A dead-end holler where a woman birthed 13 children, the last of whom wasn't born so much as dug up. No hospital ever confirmed his existence. But neighbors remember screams, raw, inhuman wails from beneath the floorboards. They say the 13th child never learned to speak, but he listens. He lives underground, traveling by root tunnels and forgotten mines. If you drop a tooth or a finger near an open pit, he'll come to collect the rest. We were spelunking near an old mine entrance, the kind sealed off with rusted chain and warning signs. My brother wanted photos for his horror zine. I dropped my flashlight. It rolled into a crevice. That's when I heard it, a scrabbling, wet sound, like claws dragging through damp wood. Then something sniffed. Hard. It knew I was bleeding. My boot had sliced open near the ankle, and my blood hit the dirt. Suddenly, the rocks shifted. A hand, too long, too many fingers. Pushed through the earth, groping blindly, twitching. Its skin was white like cave fungus, and it was covered in small, childlike scars. A second hand followed. Then I saw the head. Hairless. Toothless. Mouth sewn shut. It didn't scream. It shuddered. My brother screamed instead as it pulled him down. I ran. But even now, I hear it moving under my house. The fingernails scratching the subfloor. Last week, my dog disappeared. Last night, I found a little tooth on my pillow. Not his. Mine. The laughing woman at Laurie's Pass, if you hear her laughing on the road, do not stop, because she isn't laughing at a joke, she's laughing at your last breath. Deep in the fog-choked backroads of Northern California, travelers speak in whispers about Laurie's Pass, a jagged mountain road notorious for landslides, sudden drop-offs, and a chilling phenomenon that dates back to the 1940s. Local legend says a woman was left behind there during a winter blizzard, abandoned by her husband after their car skidded into a ditch. He walked for help. He never came back. When they found the woman's body weeks later, her lips were torn into a smile and her jaw dislocated, locked mid-laugh as if something had forced her to die laughing. Since then, drivers passing through the area have reported the sound of hysterical female laughter echoing through the fog. Sometimes from the trees. Sometimes from the back seat. If you stop to look, they say, she finds you. And then you can't stop laughing either, even when you're trying to scream. It was supposed to be a simple detour. Google Maps rerouted me through the hills to avoid construction, and before I knew it, the paved road had turned to gravel, the trees rose higher than the headlights could cut, and a cold mist began crawling in through the barely sealed windows of my aging Subaru. I should have turned around. I should have taken the road sign seriously when I passed one with spray-painted words across the top that read, "She laughs last." But I was tired, and my phone had no signal, and the only thing keeping me awake on that twisted mountain road was the occasional jolt from skidding around an unexpected curve. Then I heard it. A giggle. Faint. Far away. I froze. It sounded like it came from right outside my window, but when I turned, nothing was there. I kept driving. It came again. Louder. And this time, it was coming from inside the car. That's when the stereo flickered to life. My Bluetooth wasn't even on, and through the static, I heard a woman's voice, whispering, "Don't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop." But I did stop. And in the rearview mirror, I saw her. Hair soaked with fog, lips split wide in a sick, unnatural grin, head cocked to one side like her neck had been snapped sideways, eyes pouring black tears. And then I laughed. I laughed until I vomited blood onto the steering wheel. I laughed until I cracked 3 ribs from the force of it. And even now, I still sometimes wake up laughing so hard I can't breathe. The doctors say it's a seizure disorder. But I know it's her. Still riding with me. The man with no toes, you hear the dragging first, skin scraping pavement, flesh grinding gravel. And when you run, he follows, slower than death, but never stopping. In the dust-blown desert outskirts of New Mexico, children tell stories about a man with no toes, an emaciated figure who drags his bleeding feet across dirt roads at night, leaving behind faint crimson trails and low, gurgling moans like something trying to weep through a crushed throat. The story goes back to the 1930s, when a man was tied to a wagon wheel and forced to walk through miles of desert without shoes by bootleggers who mistook him for a snitch. He didn't die, at least not at once. Now, he's said to wander the arroyos, looking for feet to replace the ones he lost. If he touches you, the bones in your toes go first. You won't scream. You won't run. You'll just feel your legs go cold, like the desert suddenly forgot to be hot. And then, he'll try on your skin like shoes. I was filming a desert exploration vlog just north of Carrizozo, walking an abandoned railroad path littered with rusted nails, snake skeletons, and bullet-pocked signs. I'd heard about the legend, of course, but I didn't believe it. I thought it was one of those boogeyman tales meant to keep kids from wandering too far out at night. Then I saw the tracks. Not animal. Not human. Just streaks. Thick red streaks like meat dragged across stone, curved slightly where they dipped and skipped, as if whoever made them had no toes to grip with. I followed them. God help me, I followed them. The air turned still. My phone died in my hand. And that's when I heard the sound, like someone dragging wet towels across sand. Then he came into view. Thin, trembling, spine arched like a tortured dog, feet wrapped in rags soaked through with blood, mouth hanging open in a long vertical tear down his jaw. His eyes were milky. No whites. No pupils. He didn't run. He shambled, step by step, carving tracks behind him with every slice of broken skin on his soles. I ran. But every night since, I hear him outside. Dragging. Waiting. And the weirdest part? Every morning, I wake up to find my socks filled with blood. And I think he's been trying them on. The hand that waves back, you wave at a stranger in a window. They wave back. But you live alone. And there's no window on that wall. This one's short. Simple. Too easy to dismiss. And maybe that's what makes it so much worse. In suburbs across America, from trailer parks to cul-de-sacs, people report the same chilling moment. They glance toward a second-story window and see someone watching them. Not just watching, waving. It looks like them. Dresses like them. Smiles like them. Sometimes it's a child. Sometimes it's an old man. Sometimes it's you. But the house is empty. The room doesn't exist. And if you wave back, that's the invitation. It was about 2 a.m., and I was walking the dog, half asleep, head foggy with meds and routine exhaustion. We rounded the corner, and I looked up at my apartment building. Instinct, maybe. Just a habit. That's when I saw it. A figure, standing in the window above mine, waving slowly. Methodically. At first, I thought it was a neighbor. But then I realized, there's no unit above me. The building stops at my floor. And yet there it was. Waving. It looked like me. Same hoodie. Same posture. Same broken wristwatch glinting in the moonlight. I raised my hand, half-consciously. And it grinned. Not like a smile. Like a wound splitting open. I blinked. It was gone. But ever since that night, every reflective surface in my home, mirrors, TVs, windows, has started to lag by half a second. And sometimes, just sometimes, the reflections wave. Before I do. The grinning doorway man, they say if you see a man standing in your doorway at night, not moving, just smiling, don't blink. Don't breathe. Because he's not waiting for you to notice him, he's waiting for you to accept him. He doesn't knock. He doesn't speak. He simply appears. At the edge of your bedroom. In the middle of the hallway. Or just outside your doorframe, as though his entire being is limited to the boundary between rooms, never stepping in, never walking away. Urban legend calls him the grinning doorway man, a shadow figure with teeth far too white and far too many, who always stands in thresholds. They say once you notice him, he comes more often. At first you see him in dreams, then just before you fall asleep, and eventually, when you're wide awake, mid-blink, and he's already there. Smiling. Waiting. Because the moment you acknowledge him, you've given him permission to stay. The first time I saw him, I thought it was sleep paralysis. A tall man-shaped shadow, unmoving, just standing in my bedroom doorway as if made from cloth soaked in ink, his mouth lit up like a crescent moon, not glowing, just present, like teeth painted with something phosphorescent. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. And the worst part? He wasn't doing anything. He was just smiling. A watching smile. A knowing smile. Like he'd been waiting for me to notice him, and now that I had, I'd made a choice I didn't understand. The next night, he was in the hallway. The night after, the living room. By the fourth night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my kitchen floor, knife in hand, every light on. But he was still there. Half visible between the edge of my kitchen and the hall, head cocked, grin wider than it had ever been, lips curling up into his cheeks. I tried not to look. But my eyes always found him. And last night, he stepped forward. Not fully, just a toe, maybe half his foot. But I think he's inside now. And I can't stop smiling back. The candy lady, if you wake up to find a piece of candy on your windowsill, do not eat it. Do not touch it. And for God's sake, don't check under your pillow. An old Southern legend, whispered across Texas farming towns and rural schoolyards, children speak of the candy lady, a spirit who lures kids with sweets left by their bed each night. The legend dates back to the early 1900s, when a woman named Clara Crane was institutionalized after poisoning her husband with caramels and later released under mysterious circumstances. They say she returned home. They say she never stopped making candy. And they say her sweets now contain teeth, fingernails, or worse, souvenirs from children who never came home. If you find candy near your window, it means she's picked you. If you eat it, she crawls inside. It was just a peppermint. Wrapped in old-timey wax, sitting neatly on the sill beside my window, glistening like it had been placed there with care. I thought it was a prank, maybe from the neighborhood kids or some church group trying to leave religious flyers. But when I picked it up, I noticed the wrapper wasn't paper. It was skin. Thin, translucent, dotted with faint ridges like fingerprints. I dropped it and went to bed, trying to laugh it off. But in the middle of the night, I heard the crunching. Something chewing. Wetly. Slowly. Under the bed. I lay still, every muscle locked, my ears ringing with the sound of molars grinding something hard. I reached down beneath my pillow, just needing reassurance. There was something there. Round. Small. A molar. Still warm. I live alone. And last night, the candy was inside my mouth when I woke up. The green man, you'll see a green glow coming up the hill. Not headlights. Not flashlights. Just a face. And when it smiles, it's already too late. This one's real. Rooted in documented sightings. Known as Charlie No Face, the legend of the Green Man comes from western Pennsylvania, where a man named Raymond Robinson, horribly disfigured by electrocution, walked lonely roads at night to avoid ridicule. But over time, the story evolved. Now he's not a man, but a glowing figure, faceless, skin melted, who haunts backroads at dusk. They say his skin glows green from the inside, that he doesn't walk, he hovers. And that if you lock eyes with the soft illumination before you realize it's not a flashlight, you forget your name. And the thing he used to be takes your place. I was driving west through Pennsylvania after a fight with my girlfriend. Took a back road to avoid traffic and ended up on a stretch called Route 351, just trees, silence, and cracked asphalt. Then I saw it. A green light, low to the ground, too slow for a car, too steady for a phone. It shimmered like the glow of fungus on rotting wood, soft and wet-looking. I slowed down. It moved. Not toward me. Just sideways. Like it was circling. Like it was hunting in a wide arc. Then it stepped into the road. No face. No mouth. Just glow. Like something hollow with light inside. Like a child had drawn a human shape and stuffed it full of dying lightning bugs. It looked at me. I swear it did. And then the next thing I remember, it was morning. My car parked at the edge of the woods. My phone was full of photos of me. Standing outside the car. Grinning. But I never left the seat. And now every mirror reflects green behind my eyes.